Our Bible word is Genesis 16, verse 13. Then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees. For she said, have I also here seen him who sees me? So Genesis 16, it deals with the story of Hagar. And of course, yeah, this portion of Genesis, it deals with the patriarchs of Israel, Abram, Isaac, Jacob, and also Joseph. But it's about God's covenant with Abram, of course, which would also extend further to his sons, his descendants, etc. And as when God called Abram from Ur of the Chaldees, he promised him, look, I'm going to make you a great nation. I'll give you a new land to settle in. And so Abram eventually came to Canaan. And then now he's been 10 years in Canaan. And if in the previous chapter, chapter 15, Abram asked God, God, where is my son? Where's my heir you promised? I am childless. So God said, no, you will have an heir, and also you will have descendants as the stars of the sky, etc. And then our Bible says, and he, that's Abram, believed in the Lord, and he accounted it to him for righteousness. And of course, we find this passage also quoted by Apostle Paul in Galatians and in Romans. So God gave Abram the state of righteousness because Abram trusted, he believed in God. So now the narrative develops because in chapter 16 it focuses on Hagar, and now Abram's already about 86 years old. He's already for 10 years in Canaan, and so his wife, at this stage she's called Sarai, or Sarai, and Abram himself is just Abram. It's only in chapter 17 where Sarai becomes Sarah and Abram becomes Abraham, because it says there, you'll be the mother of many nations, or the father of many nations in the case of Abram. And also only in chapter 17, that's where the covenant of circumcision comes to an effect. But now, Abram being 86 years old, his wife Sarai, as she's called, she comes to him and she tells him, take my maidservant Hagar, and she's an Egyptian, and take her to give you an heir, because I'm unable to now. And she tells Abram, yeah, marry her. And so Abram did marry her, and then Hagar conceived a child. And we must understand at this time, the world was patriarchal. So the world was about the male head of the household. It was about also patrilineal descent, where the family wealth, the family honor, tradition, whatever is passed down from father to son, etc. So the main job, if I can put it like that, of a wife was to produce a male heir. So now with Hagar being pregnant, now she is in a position, in a sense, to supplant Sarai in status, because then it would be her son that would continue the line. But of course, God, the whole story is also about election and God's purposes. And God's purpose is that from Abram's son Isaac will continue the covenant, and of course also Jacob, etc. So Sarai's plans didn't agree with God's plans. But anyway, Hagar becomes pregnant, and now she starts making fun of Sarai. If we go to chapter 16, verses 4, it says there, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress became despised in her eyes. Of course, you can also understand this in terms of rivalry between wives, so to speak, but also it's for Hagar, she kind of gains preeminence over Sarai, because if she gives Abram a son, she would kind of become the primary wife, so to speak. So she started making fun of Sarai, because I'm now in pole position, so to say, to get greater status. And then Sarai was sad about this. And then Abram told her, well, she's your maidservant, you can do as you wish. And then Sarai didn't treat her very well. Then Hagar decided to flee. Now, if we look at this map, there's that yellow arrow. So she would have followed that yellow arrow, and she would have made her way on the road to Shur. And there's the wilderness of Shur, there on the northern edge of Sinai. Now, of course, passing that region, you've also passed the Negev, which is a very harsh, warm, dry place. But this is the road, and she came to a well. And according to the biblical account, she gave it the name Be'er Lachai Roi, which means something like the well of the living one who sees me. We're not exactly sure where this well is situated, but it's somewhere in that area, there close to that northern part of the wilderness of Shur. So Hagar wants to flee. She's returning back to Egypt because now her mistress, Sarai, was treating her harshly. And this is where the angel of the Lord appeared to her. And he asks her, Hagar, Sarai's maid, where have you come from and where are you going? She said, I'm fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai. Of course, because she was treated harshly. But the angel also tells her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand. So the angel tells you, go back to also this harsh treatment that you're enduring. But he also gives her a blessing, because he also promises her that your son, he will also become a great nation. And because he says in verse 10, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they shall not be counted for multitude. And the angel of the Lord also said to her, you are with child, and you will call his name Ishmael. And Ishmael means God hears. So we see the play of words there. If we go to verses 11, behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael. That's God hears, because the Lord has heard your affliction. He also, the rest of this blessings says that he will be a wild man. The Hebrew actually says something like a wild donkey of a man. And he has a play on words of donkey and paran. That's if we go to the map again, the descendants of Ishmael will settle in that area, the wilderness of Paran. So that he'll be a wild donkey of man, or a wild man plays on, or is a word play on the word donkey and Paran in the Hebrew. And so there is a blessing. There will be multitudes. He will become a great nation. And now we come to our Bible word also, because now the Lord has spoken through the angel to Hagar. Then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees. For she said, have I here seen him who sees me? So in Hebrew, that's El Roi. You are the God who sees. Because now God saw her affliction and came to her in her affliction. And she also called the well where this happened as the well of the living one who sees me. Or it's also known as Be'er Lachai Roi in the Hebrew. So Hagar later gave birth to Ishmael. But of course, it's also a bit of a sad ending for her in the end, because around the time when Ishmael was born, Abram was about 86, 87, and around the time the promised son was born, he was 99 or 100 years old. And when Isaac was weaned, Ishmael mocked him, and then again that caused trouble, and so then Abram was forced to also expel them from the land. And of course, that's where again we read the story of Ishmael or Hagar and his son being in the wilderness and being thirsty, and God coming to their rescue. So this is the story of Hagar. Sarai's plans was for Hagar to give him offspring. And of course, later she regretted it, because God's plan, God's election was to go through Isaac. But yes, Ishmael, he means God hears. In the time of affliction, when she was in this dry, hot desert place, she recognizes God, who came to her aid through this angel. And she calls him, you are the God who sees, because God saw her in her affliction.